Hello and welcome to our Women Engaged program. We are so glad that you could come and join us today. We have a really interesting program today, and it's one that we have entitled Battle of the Sexes. So, I want to begin by introducing our panelists today. If you're watching for the first time, you may not know who we are. Some of you have been following us, so you've seen our faces before. But I'll begin by introducing myself, and I'm going to ask my sisters here to also introduce themselves. And I'm going to ask that as you introduce yourself, I'm going to give you a very difficult question. I want you to consider, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least, 10 being the most representative of how you feel, would you consider yourself to be a feminist on a scale of 1 to 10? Okay, it's a difficult question. Okay, so I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Jocelyn Isavidie. On a scale of 1 to 10, do I consider myself to be a feminist? I would say 5, somewhere in the middle.
Wow.
My name is Rose Misati. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm Molly Odoyo. In a scale of 1 to 10, I would actually say I don't know, but I think I'll tell you as time goes by.
Okay, all right.
My name is Debbie Maloba. On that question, let me scale for 6. And I have a reason.
Okay, yes. All right. Okay, so I know that was a difficult question. Yes, because I think the first question is, what is a feminist? Yes. And I deliberately use that term because it's a very big word now. It's out there in the media. It's being studied in schools, you know, this feminist movement and this thing of women empowerment. And I could see the hesitation, you know, especially from Molly, because it's difficult to gauge if you don't know how. So maybe, Molly, we can start with you and tell me what made it difficult for you to even put yourself on that scale.
I've seen in so many places, especially in Kenya, that we've encouraged women power so much that they're actually forgotten. It's like they're competing against something they want to achieve, and then they end up losing the most important thing, which is humility. You know, and the divine power that made them get to where they are. They think they're the ones who are in control, and they actually can control the world. They can control their family, they can control their siblings, they can control the organization. It's a good thing, but it's not about them. It's about the people who are around them too. So when you are growing, you grow the people around you, grow for the society, not for yourself. Yeah, so it's a good thing at the same time with moderation.
Okay, interesting. I'll come to you, Debbie, because you said there's a reason for your 6.
Yes, yeah. I think it's not a bad thing to empower women. A feminist, for me, I take it at an extreme. You see, when you say feminist, you do everything because you, according to the gender, because you are a woman. While there are things that you are supposed to do so that you become complementary to men. But as Molly said, we need to be careful. And we don't have to generalize, because it depends on your background.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll come next.
That's why I gave you my 6.
Okay. Yes. I'll come next because my 5 is closer to your 6, and then we'll finish with Rose because hers was a slightly higher. So I put a 5 there, just somewhere in the middle, not on either extremes, because on the one hand, I think that it is important for us to empower women, because there are certain aspects of our history, whether it's worldwide or here in Africa, where we have seen that we need to make strides forward in empowering our girls. I was doing some reading, and I found some interesting statistics, that we have had great strides in realizing women's rights in Africa. For example, female participation in African legislation now is a reality in many countries. And in some countries, it even surpasses, like in Rwanda, it even surpasses the developed countries. And there are now provisions on sexual and gender-based violence, economic, social, and cultural rights, and non-discrimination in constitutions and policies across our country. And I think these are very important because these are real-life realities of what our women and even our girls are living with. And so I think that it is important that we're moving in the direction where women can be valued in their rights as human beings. And it's also true that to some extent women have been denied full employment of their rights. For example, in 6 of our African countries, there's no legal protection for women against domestic violence. There's no legal protection. Your husband can batter you almost to the point of death, but you have no legal recourse, So we still have these practices that I think we need to fight for. Our girls, we need to fight for our rights as women. And so, yes, I believe in that. But I couldn't go beyond the 5 because I felt like sometimes there's now a balance that has failed to be maintained, where being a feminist means that I am female and therefore I am against male. Yes. And that's why we've entitled our topic today, Battle of the Sexes. Yes. Not because I'm advocating for the battle of the sexes, but it's almost like it's become a battle where the women were fighting against men instead of just trying to find our place as human beings. Because really, I think that's what, for me, feminism should have been about. Not about empowering the female at the expense of the male, but just acknowledging the humanity of all human beings and making sure that all of us are able to fulfill our potential that God has placed in us. So that's why I put myself at a 5. I didn't want to go too much, but we'll let now Rose tell us. She put herself at an 8.
Yes, I put myself at an 8 because for me, feminism is about empowering the woman so that she can make choices. I do believe that the power of a woman lies in the quiet and the meek spirit that Paul talks about in Scripture. There is no woman without a man, and there is no man without a woman. In that way, we complement one another.
At least in the context of marriage.
In the context of marriage.
Yes.
I do not believe that if the woman is stronger, then the man will be weaker. I believe there can be a win-win, where both of them are strong in their areas that God has gifted them. And, there are both historical and biological vulnerabilities in women that they need protection and they need to be empowered. For example, many of our societies are highly patriarchal, even in our church. It's not every day that you see a woman, standing in the pulpit and preaching. In fact, one pastor recently told me that in his country, in Africa, he said when they meet in a congregation, a woman cannot pray, that they feel women are defiled. But in their home, they are leading in worship, but when they reach church, a woman cannot preach, a woman cannot pray. And also, when we talk about biology, women go through monthly periods, pregnancy, childbirth, and child rearing. Those are periods of vulnerabilities where a woman needs to be supported and they need to be protected. And even in physical strength, men were created to be the head, and they're the key decision makers in homes, even in government, in churches, and in many places. And so it's a good thing, but sometimes it can be misused to oppress the women, because also just going back, many of our cultures, I believe majority of them, there is preference of the male child. Whereby you find a family has girls, eventually when they get a male child, they say they have now given birth to a human being.
Yeah.
And there's celebration, like the others were not human beings. How are the girls supposed to feel? And for me, I feel why it's not for feminism, I would not be here, because my mother raised us single-handedly. She didn't go to school, but because she could work with her hands and make choices. Even when society felt you don't need to take this girl to school, save the money to take the brothers. And she said no. And she took us to school, and now we can make choices. So that even in situations where there's abuse, you can decide whether to stay or to leave, but not to stay because you have no choice, but to stay because you have chosen. Yes.
Yeah, maybe, Jocelyn, tell us more. Because according to Rose, what you explained, it seems like it's 50-50. When you say everybody, every human being has the right to study, even to stand and preach. Yes. What does it mean? Is it that 80 or it's 50?
I think it can be both. I think I hear what you're saying, because what you're saying is you agree with everything she said. So it means she's near where you were. But I also hear what she's saying, because it seems to me that what Rose is saying is the reason it has to be an 8 is because everything has been so oppressive that you almost have to fight extra hard, to counter, because when you have two opposing forces,
yes.
if one is stronger than the other, then the weaker force is not going to take you anywhere. So you almost have to overcompensate. You have to be an 8 in order to compensate for all of these inequalities. Because I hear what Rose is saying when she says, and in many of our cultures, I'm from Uganda, the two of you are from Kenya, you're from Congo, but in many of our cultures, it's the it's the boy child who is the human being. And it's very painful. I remember we have a WhatsApp group, and when one of my younger brothers said, "Ooh, Jocelyn has caught feelings," and I said, "Yes, I've caught feelings," because my brother, they did a family tree of our family, and they left me out, and I'm the only girl in my family.
Yes, because
they left me out
elsewhere.
Not just because I'm married, because I'm a girl. So they left me out, which means I was left out. My children have been left out. So they have this family tree of our family, but I am not included. And I felt hurt. Because I felt it's like I'm not a human being. So 100 years from now, when someone looks at that family tree, it's like I never existed. My existence did not count. And they're like, don't catch feelings, you're a girl. But I caught feelings. I was offended, because it's like, and I make a contribution to my family. I believe that I am valuable to my family, to my parents. I do make a contribution, but because I'm female, I will not be acknowledged on that tree.
It's true, I understand. And then, you have reminded me something, Jocelyn. I was in a team somewhere where we were supposed to nominate the chairman of the PTA in a school and the vice and every other person. And I remember somebody said, even as you choose the chairman, it has to be a man. Yeah, he said, because we understand the nature in which the organization works. If it's a man, you will be listened to. If it's a woman, you will say the same thing even better, but they will not listen to you because you are a man. So I said, it's okay. So the man was nominated. It came to vice chair, and then somebody mentioned now it can be a woman. Then one man raised up his hand. He comes from a less patriarchal society. He said, you know what? I don't care. I'm choosing Rose. Not because she's a woman, but I would have wanted her to be the chair. But because you have insisted it has to be a man, it will be somebody else, but it will be Rose. Not because she's a woman to be vice chair, but because I believe she's capable to even be a chair. And so we were nominated. But what has been happening is that you will find that I have been supporting the chair, and even says, you are doing the bulk of this work, because they felt I need to be here because I'm a man. And I'm not whining or fretting or complaining, I'm supporting, but when I look at it, I say, is this how I would like my grandchildren to grow up? They have the competencies, but just because they are wearing a skirt or a dress, they can't be the chair. Really? Seriously? Who does that?
So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting. So we see that there is a need, at least those of us here, I don't know what our audience is from their experience, but we see from even our own personal experience that there is a need for us to be affirmed as women, to be encouraged, empowered, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, I think going back to now what Molly was saying, there is a danger. Let's talk about the danger that comes from this movement to empower women. What are some of the challenges that have come that we might think, now maybe this is not necessarily a healthy thing, even for us as women?
Yeah, I think we've concentrated so much on the girl child, and then we forgot how to educate the men to deal with us. So you find that the lady is taking too much strength and striving to reach a full potential, where the boy there is sitting and in wondering, like, what do I do with this girl? I can't bring her down. I can't compete with her. And the responsibility she's maybe is supposed to take up at home, nobody has ever taught him. So in the process, you find like they actually, there's nobody who's coming to mentor them. Actually, there's nobody who's telling them how to cope with a strong woman. Somebody who's getting to a full potential. And most of our cultures actually don't teach us family values, even sister-brother relationship, husband-wife, you find yourself with a brother, and then you're expected to grow up. And then you find a way of balancing. How do I treat my sister? Your mom will tell you don't do that, but she'll not tell you this is how you're supposed to handle your sister. You get married, your mom will tell you, like, keep off men. You keep off men, and then you get married and they tell you, be the best wife, And then so you wonder how. So same to the man, yeah? Like if you go out with this lady, you make her pregnant and then you'll marry her. Now you are married, and now you married her, she was a secretary. Now she's a professor. How do you grow together? Yeah. So like I think the thing is like, how do we ensure that the society empower women and empower the man so that
to
they
deal
grow
with
together.
a strong woman.
Yeah. When the lady is getting strong, the man is getting wiser. But you can't leave the man who was maybe the same stage when you are stronger. It won't work.
I think that's a very important point, because we usually we learn through modeling. We look at, we learn to speak by imitation. We learn to be men by looking at the men around us. We learn to be women by looking at, and I think that's a very important point, because if you've been looking at a generation where my father was more powerful than my mother, he's more educated than my mother, he earns more than my mother, so the dynamics are very different. So I don't know, my son will not necessarily, maybe not in my own situation, but generally speaking, I think the point you're making is the men don't know, haven't been taught, can you be a strong man when you have a strong woman? Exactly. Because, yes, that complements her. Because, not compete. Because in the past, what they used to see is a strong man and a weak woman. Yes. We traditionally had a more subservient role, and so our sons would see us in that role. Exactly. And now they don't know how to be a man in a situation where the wife is not in that role. So I think that's a very important point. What other challenge do we have from feminism besides that?
Let me just add to what she has said. Yeah. It has reminded me, last year we had a convention. We had more than 800 girls, young girls. Now we wanted to empower them so that they know that they have also to contribute to the development of their society, their community. Now men came up and they said, you will not leave us behind. Whatever you are going to teach or to train these young ladies, when they come back, we are the ones to destroy them. I liked it. Yeah. You see, when you focus on that young generation, it will save what she says. So we invited them.
So the boys came as well?
Yes, boys came, and then we trained them with girls. They said, yes. You see, now we are informed. Yeah. When they are informed on what they are going to do, they even help you. They even contribute.
Yes, I can take it up from what she's saying. Even like in health, we have various programs where we have male champions. We have male champions for family planning, male champions for nutrition, and male champions for girl-child empowerment. So these male champions, they have a personal testimony where they have their wives empowered, their girls empowered, and they say, I support, because men still remain to be the key decision makers. So when a girl is empowered, for me, I feel it's an advantage. But then again, there's a caution. While we're in the process of teaching the man to cope with a strong woman, I always talk to my fellow empowered women and I tell them there are gender roles that need to be very specific, and they are defined even biblically and even scientifically and everything.
That's a good point, because I think the other challenge that I was thinking of in my mind is that somehow this feminist movement has led to an identity crisis. What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a man? So I can ask you maybe just to continue on that.
Can I just say something? I think in the process, I think we should look at the background, yeah? When you're being empowered, your mom was oppressed. So when she's talking to you, she tells you, I need you, she's overcompensating. She's not giving you the guidelines of being a strong woman. She tells you, I wasn't able to do this, so go there and do it. This. So you go blindly and you do it. What are you doing?
Overcompensating.
You are living through your mom's mistakes so that my daughter, I don't want you to be like me. Somebody who sits down at home, somebody who's not provided for. So you go there and get all the material things of this world. And then what your family suffers because she never told you, after you've gotten all this, come back and use this to empower your family and make your family healthier and together. So you go there, you give it your all because that's what you're supposed to do. You don't want to be like your mom. And then you lose everything else. So you balance. So like as much as we're teaching our daughters to be empowered, we have to tell them the basis of this is you.
And modeling, as we say, modeling is very important because somebody told me one time that what we do speaks so loud our children can't hear what we are saying. And for me, it has been a journey because I've had to learn, through the various phases in my married life, never having seen my mom submitting to anybody, knowing that my mom is the one who gets the money and does this and this. Then now there's a man, I almost got confused because I would go ahead and do my projects and I wonder, why should I tell anyone?
Yes, because your mother was a widow who brought you up.
Exactly,
without
exactly.
a man.
And she was oppressed most of the time. So she was telling us, go ahead. Just as she said, I agree. Do it. So there was overcompensation. But over the years with God's wisdom, you can learn to have a balance, a healthy balance. Yeah. And it will be beautiful to complement one another.
And you'll be happier.
You will be happier.
Yeah.
And more fulfilled.
But more fulfilled.
Interestingly, you've talked about happiness. I was reading some of the research, and they were saying that the modern woman, of course, it's more in the Western context where they have, been empowered and all that. And when Molly was talking about you're at the top, but then what else do you have? And they found that, going through all from the 60s, 70s, this feminist movement, that the modern woman is not as happy as the mother who was more oppressed. So they have it all, but they're not happier.
Yeah.
I believe, and maybe I might be quoted and people disagree with me, you can always get a job. You resign today, 2-3 days, you'll get another one. You lose your family, your friends, you won't get replacement. You'll never get that kindergarten friend that you had, that you are so busy that you didn't have time for. They called you, you were so busy running out for everything. But you lose your job today, trust me, you might even get one the same day. If you don't get another job, you could do another business. But you'll never get back what you've lost in terms of even the peace of mind. You'll go run up there and then you are so drained, you're actually so exhausted that you actually can't go to work tomorrow. Who do you expect to be by your side? Your colleagues in the office? Is your sister who you can't remember the last time you called or even spoken to? So as much as you're growing, please ensure that you take care of everything else. Give and you keep, you also set time aside for yourself. My me time, reflect. What is your limit? How far do you want to go? And if you go that far, will everything else be in order or it will be affected?
And I think also, as you're talking about goals, I was just thinking, I think sometimes we also have to ask ourselves, what are our eternal goals? Because there are certain things that we're not going to take with us. Yeah. We're not going to take with us to heaven our jobs, our professions, our credentials. But we hope we'll take our husbands, our children, our friends. We hope that those are people that we will spend eternity with. And so if that's what is eternal, then where do we have to put the balance? But I think sometimes the problem is that we bring our own human interpretation even to scriptures. Like I remember I used to really have a problem with Paul telling us that to submit to our husbands, and then the husbands should they should love their wives. And it really wasn't because of what Paul said that I had a problem with, but it was the way it was interpreted in society. Every time they're talking, they mostly talk about the submission. And actually the submission almost becomes oppression. And then I feel like, how come you're not, okay, I'm willing to submit. Because I also come from a culture where, as a woman, we're very submissive, not just to our husbands, but, we kneel for our elders, those kind of things. So I understand that, I get that, I'm willing to submit. But also tell my husband to love me,
Exactly.
And to love me, and he didn't just say love her. He said love her the way Christ loves the church. Oh my. Which woman is not going to want to submit to a man who loves you to the point where you are his everything.
Exactly.
The way Christ left heaven and was born in a manger, first of all, where it's the smell of urine and all this of animals. And he was wrapped in swaddling clothes to poor parents. He left all that glory for me. why wouldn't I submit to someone like that? But I think it's the interpretation. Every time it comes from the pulpit, it's the submission,
And it's
and then the
negative.
man is all looking like this, like,
Yeah.
you've heard. So I think the problem is not what God has instituted, but our interpretation of it, where now submission becomes oppressive. And so, as we finish, I want you to just think, if you have a sister, a daughter who is watching us right now, and they've heard us talk about the battle of the sexes, and I think we've agreed this is not really a battle. Let's stop fighting. What last message would you give them? I'll start with you.
Yeah,
Deb.
let's show love in everything we do. Let's have that feeling of complementarity. Whatever we do, we have differences, but when love comes, it breaks everything and it covers everything. Even the submission we are talking about, you will not feel it because we love each other.
Being empowered is not a competition. You're not competing against anyone but yourself. So when you grow for yourself and for the glory of God, so that you can meet your full potential. Yeah.
I would like to speak to the girls out there that God created us with an individuality to nurture and to develop for His glory. Find your purpose and go for it. Let no one change you as a person. It's a beautiful thing if you're in a marriage relationship to be loved and to submit. It comes automatically. However, the ideal picture is whereby the man acknowledges the lordship of Jesus Christ and submits, and the woman submits to the man, and they both submit to one another. It's a beautiful thing, and I hope we all find that balance. Then we can be able to enjoy fulfilling relationships.
And my word, to add to what my sisters have already said, it's not a battle. God did not create Adam and Eve to fight. And it is the difference between us as male and female that actually makes us stronger. So let's embrace it and let's grow one another. So each of us, males, females, daughters and sons of God, can meet our full potential that God has placed in each and every one of us. So thank you so much for joining us today in our discussion. We hope it's made you think and reflect a little bit. If you wish to engage further with our topic and with one another on the topic, remember to look us up on our Facebook page. Look for Women Engage. Until next time, God bless you.
Thank you.
Hey, I think the guys were, I could see, they almost forgot they're behind the camera. They wanted to join, to join the discussion.
Thank you very much.